You are walking through a valley in southern Europe. It is 50,000 years ago. The air is cool. The grass is green. The mountains rise around you. You are not alone. Across the valley, you see a figure. It is human. But it is not like you. It is shorter, broader, heavier. Its face is different. A low forehead, a prominent brow ridge, a wide nose. Its arms are thick. Its chest is barrel-shaped. It is a Neanderthal. You have seen them before. They have been here for 300,000 years. Your species, Homo sapiens, arrived in Europe only 5,000 years ago. You are the newcomer. They are the natives. You watch each other for a long moment. Then the Neanderthal turns and walks away. You do not know it yet, but you are watching a species that will soon disappear. Within 15,000 years, every Neanderthal on Earth will be dead. Within 30,000 years, every other human species will be gone too. Only you will remain. Let me ask you something. If you go back 2 million years, there were multiple human species living at the same time. Homo erectus in Asia, Homo heidelbergensis in Europe and Africa, Paranthropus boisei in East Africa, Homo floresiensis on the island of Flores. Later, Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, Denisovans in Siberia and East Asia, Homo luzonensis in the Philippines, Homo naledi in South Africa. At one point, at least 5 or 6 different human species walked the Earth simultaneously. Now there is only one, US. What happened to all the others? Did we kill them? Did we outcompete them? Did we interbreed with them until they disappeared? Or did climate change wipe them out while we by luck survived? The answer, as you are about to see, is all of the above and none of the above. The truth is more complicated than any simple explanation. Let us start with the most famous extinct human species, the Neanderthals. Neanderthals first appeared in Europe around 400,000 years ago. They evolved from an earlier species called Homo heidelbergensis. They were well adapted to cold climates. They had stocky bodies, short limbs, and large noses. Their brains were, on average, slightly larger than those of modern humans. A 2014 study by Dr. Eilund Pearce at the University of Oxford measured the brain size of Neanderthals compared to modern humans. Pearce found that Neanderthal brains were about 10% larger on average, but the differences were in visual processing areas rather than social cognition areas. Neanderthals were not stupid. They made complex stone tools. They controlled fire. They built shelters. They cared for their injured and elderly. They buried their dead. They may have had language. A 2018 study by Dr. Svante Pääbo at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology sequenced the Neanderthal genome and found that Neanderthals shared the FOXP2 gene, a gene associated with language ability in modern humans. Neanderthals were sophisticated, intelligent, and adaptable. They survived multiple ice ages. They dominated Europe and Asia for over 300,000 years. Then modern humans arrived from Africa around 45,000 years ago. Within 15,000 years, the Neanderthals were gone. Let me tell you about the overlap period. For about 5,000 years, Neanderthals and modern humans lived in the same territories. They shared the same caves. They hunted the same animals. They probably encountered each other regularly. A 2017 study by Dr. Tom Hyam at the University of Oxford used radiocarbon dating to refine the timeline of Neanderthal disappearance. Hyam found that the last Neanderthals survived in isolated pockets in southern Europe until around 40,000 years ago. The overlap was longer in some places than others. In the Iberian Peninsula, Neanderthals may have persisted until 37,000 years ago. For almost 10,000 years, 2 human species lived side by side in Europe. They did not ignore each other. We know this because we have found their DNA in our genomes. A 2010 study by Dr. Svante Pääbo at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology published the first draft of the Neanderthal genome. The results were shocking. Between 1 and 4% of the DNA of modern humans of non-African descent comes from Neanderthals. This means that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals had sex, a lot of sex, enough sex that Neanderthal genes are still present in your body today. Think about what this means. The two human species did not just compete, they mated. They had children together. Those children grew up, had their own children, and passed Neanderthal DNA down through the generations. The extinction of the Neanderthals was not a clean replacement. It was a messy, intimate, biological fusion. But let me tell you about another ghost species. In 2008, archaeologists working in the Denisova cave in Siberia found a small bone fragment. It was the tip of a finger. It belonged to a young girl. A 2012 study by Dr. Johannes Kraus at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology analyzed the DNA from this bone fragment. The DNA did not match Neanderthals. It did not match modern humans. It was something entirely new. They called it the Denisovan. The Denisovans are a human species we barely know. We have no complete skeleton. We have no skull. We have a finger bone, a few teeth, and a piece of a jaw. That is all. But from that fragmentary evidence, we have learned that Denisovans lived across Asia, from Siberia to Southeast Asia. They interbred with both Neanderthals and modern humans. If you are of Melanesian, Aboriginal, Australian, or Filipino descent, you carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. A 2019 study by Dr. Murray Cox at Massey University in New Zealand analyzed Denisovan DNA in modern populations. Cox found that Denisovan genes help modern humans adapt to high altitude, cold climates, and perhaps even certain pathogens. The ghost species lives on in your cells. Let me tell you about the hobbits. In 2003, archaeologists working on the Indonesian island of Flores discovered the skeleton of a tiny human. She was about 1 meter tall. Her brain was the size of a chimpanzee. She lived as recently as 50,000 years ago. They called her Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit. A 2016 study by Dr. Gerrit van den Berg at the University of Wollongong analyzed the geological and archaeological context of Homo floresiensis. Van den Berg found that these tiny humans lived on Flores for at least 700,000 years. They made stone tools. They hunted pygmy elephants called stegodon. They survived volcanic eruptions, climate shifts, and sea level changes. Then modern humans arrived on Flores around 50,000 years ago. Within a few thousand years, the hobbits were gone. The pattern is consistent. A new human species arrives from Africa. The native human species disappears. It happened in Europe with Neanderthals. It happened in Asia with Denisovans. If this were a documentary on Netflix, you would recognize the pattern immediately. New arrivals, native departures. It is a story written in bone and stone, not invented by screenwriters. It happened in Indonesia with Homo floresiensis. It happened in the Philippines with Homo luzonensis. It happened in South Africa with Homo naledi. Everywhere Homo sapiens went, the local humans vanished. The pattern is so consistent that some researchers call it the sapiens wave of extinction. Wherever our species arrived, other humans disappeared. It happened in Europe. It happened in Asia. It happened in Southeast Asia. It happened in Africa. The only continent where it did not happen was Antarctica. So let me ask you the uncomfortable question. Did we kill them? The evidence for prehistoric warfare is limited but suggestive. A 2015 study by Dr. Marta Mirazan-La at the University of Cambridge analyzed a mass burial site at Nataruk in Kenya, dated to around 10,000 years ago. The site contained the remains of at least 27 individuals, including women and children, who had been killed by force. Hands were bound, skulls were crushed, bodies were left unburied. This is the earliest clear evidence of intergroup violence in the human fossil record. But 10,000 years ago is late. The extinctions happened much earlier. We do not have direct evidence of Homo sapiens massacring Neanderthals. The weapons existed. The motivation existed. But the fossil evidence is ambiguous. A 2019 study by Dr. Nicholas Conard at the University of Tübingen analyzed stone projectile points from Neanderthal sites in Europe. Conard found that Neanderthals had projectile weapons capable of killing at close range, but they did not have long-range weapons like the spur throwers of modern humans. This technological gap may have been decisive. If modern humans could kill from a distance, they could eliminate Neanderthals with much lower risk. You do not need to be stronger, you just need to be safer. Let me tell you what the fantasy genre gets right about extinction. Think about Lord of the Rings, where the elves leave Middle-earth because their time is over. Or Game of Thrones, where the last of the giants face the same fate. Extinction is not always a sudden, violent event. Sometimes it is a slow fading, a retreat into smaller territories until there is nowhere left to go. That is what happened to the Neanderthals. They were not slaughtered en masse. They were slowly, gradually replaced. Like the elves in Tolkien's world, they eventually sailed into the sunset. Let me tell you about the competition hypothesis. The most widely accepted explanation for the extinction of other human species is not direct violence. It is competition. Modern humans had more efficient hunting technology. They had better clothing. They had more complex social structures. They lived in larger groups. They had more children. A 2011 study by Dr. Richard Klein at Stanford University analyzed the demographic differences between Neanderthals and modern humans. Klein argued that modern humans had a higher birth rate, lower infant mortality, and longer lifespan. Over thousands of years, even a small demographic advantage leads to replacement. Imagine two populations living in the same territory. Population A grows at 1% per year. Population B stays stable. Within 2,000 years, population A is 50 times larger than population B. That is not genocide, that is demography. Population A does not need to kill, it just needs to have more babies and keep them alive. Eventually, population B is marginalized, outcompeted, and pushed into marginal territories where survival is harder. Climate change may have delivered the final blow. A 2020 study by Dr. Michael Storbwasser at the University of Cologne analyzed climate data from the period of Neanderthal disappearance. Storbwasser found that a series of rapid climate oscillations between 45 and 35,000 years ago created extreme environmental stress. Cold, dry periods reduced plant and animal biomass across Europe. The Neanderthals, living in small, isolated populations, could not adapt fast enough. The modern humans with larger networks and more flexible technology could. It was not one factor. It was a perfect storm of competition, climate change, demographic pressure. Let me tell you about another factor that is often overlooked: disease. When modern humans left Africa, they carried a suite of pathogens that Neanderthals and Denisovans had never encountered. A 2016 study by Dr. Charlotte Holdcroft at the University of Cambridge analyzed the impact of infectious diseases on Neanderthal populations. Holdcroft argued that diseases carried by modern humans, such as tuberculosis, herpes, and stomach ulcers, may have devastated Neanderthal communities. The Neanderthals had no immunity. They had no prior exposure. The same thing happened when Europeans arrived in the Americas. Smallpox and measles killed millions of indigenous people who had no immunity. The difference was that in the Americas, the genetic distance was small. Between modern humans and Neanderthals, the genetic distance was much larger. The pathogens may have been even more lethal. A 2018 study by Dr. Matja Hadinjak at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology analyzed ancient DNA from Neanderthal remains. Hadinjak found evidence that Neanderthal populations were already declining before modern humans arrived. Their genetic diversity was low. Their population numbers were small. Inbreeding was common. They were already vulnerable. Modern humans may have been the final push, not the initial cause. Let me tell you about Homo luzonensis, the most recently discovered Extinct human species. In 2019, archaeologists in Calao Cave on Luzon in the Philippines found bones from a previously unknown human. Tiny body, curved fingers, small teeth. A 2019 study by Dr. Florent Dutroit at the Muséum National d'Histoire, Nature in Paris described the fossils. Dutroit argued that multiple human species lived in Southeast Asia at the same time. Then, Homo sapiens arrived, and they disappeared. Same pattern, same ending. Let me tell you about the last surviving non-sapiens human, Homo erectus. Homo erectus was the longest surviving human species. They first appeared around 2 million years ago. They spread across Asia and Africa. They made hand axes. They controlled fire. They may have built rafts. The last known population of Homo erectus lived on the island of Java in Indonesia. A 2019 study by Dr. Russell Siocon at the University of Iowa analyzed the dating of Homo erectus fossils from the Ngandong site in Java. Siocon found that Homo erectus survived there until around 110,000 years ago. That means Homo erectus was alive when Homo sapiens was already present in Africa. They were contemporaries for at least 200,000 years. Two human species existed on the same planet. Then, Homo erectus disappeared. We do not know how. Their disappearance may have been caused by climate change, volcanic activity, or competition with other human species. But their story is remarkable. They survived for nearly 2 million years. That is 10 times longer than Homo sapiens has existed so far. We are still in our infancy compared to them. Let me tell you about the speed of extinction. A 2016 study by Dr. Chris Stringer at the Natural History Museum in London modeled the timeline of human extinction events. Stringer found that once Homo sapiens arrived in a region, the local humans typically disappeared within 5 to 15,000 years. For species that had survived for hundreds of millennia, that is almost instant. Let me bring this back to you. Look at your own hands. In your cells, Neanderthal DNA affects your skin, hair, and immune system. Denisovan DNA helps you adapt to high altitude and cold. You are not pure Homo sapiens. You are a hybrid, a living archive of extinct human species. The other humans are not completely gone. Parts of them live in you. A 2020 study by Dr. Joshua Akey at Princeton University analyzed the functional effects of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans. Akey found that Neanderthal genes influence your risk for depression, blood, clotting, and autoimmune diseases. Your body carries the genetic legacy of extinct humans in every cell. They are not just dead. They are part of you. So did ancient humans exterminate other human species? The answer is not as simple as yes or no. We did not necessarily kill them all directly, but we replaced them. We outcompeted them. We absorbed them. We outbred them. We may have infected them. We may have infected them. We may have killed some of them, and then we mated with the survivors. The story of human expansion is not a story of intentional genocide, but it is a story of replacement. And replacement by any other name is a form of extinction. The other human species did not disappear because they were inferior. They disappeared because, in the long, grinding competition for resources, they were slightly less effective. They were slightly less adaptable. They were slightly less connected. And in the end, slightly less was enough. Enough to push them into marginal territories. Enough to reduce their numbers below replacement level. Enough to ensure that, when the climate shifted against them, they had no reserves to draw on. We did not kill them with spears or clubs. We killed them with presence. We killed them by being there, by using the same resources, by having more children, by occupying the same caves and hunting the same herds. That is a kind of violence. It is just not the kind that leaves visible wounds. The next time you look in the mirror, remember, you are not looking at a single species. You are looking at a composite, a mosaic of evolutionary survivors. The face you see is a face that carries traces of Neanderthal brow ridges and Denisovan cheekbones. The hands you see are hands that have held Neanderthal tools. The brain you think with is a brain that has processed millions of years of survival decisions. You are alone now, the last of your kind, but you were never really alone. A 2021 study by Dr. Janet Kelso at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology analyzed how Neanderthal DNA shaped the modern human genome. Kelso found that some Neanderthal gene variants spread widely, while others were removed by natural selection. The traces of extinct humans in your DNA are not random. They are the signature of ancient encounters written in the language of evolution. The others are still here, in your DNA, in your body, in every breath you take. When you reach for a piece of fruit, your hand closes around it with a grip strength that was forged in the hands of Neanderthal toolmakers who lived 400,000 years ago. When you scan a crowded room for a familiar face, your brain processes social information using neural pathways that Denisovans refined over millennia of survival in the mountains of Asia. When you laugh at a shared joke, the social circuitry in your brain lights up with connections that were strengthened around campfires, where different human species once sat together as friends, rivals, and lovers. You are not a single story. You are a library. Every cell in your body is a shelf of ancient texts. Every gene on those shelves is a book.